Um,
I know the feeling.
yes, it does help if you have your feet on the ground. Well, Bill, looks like you got yourself a box office hit with this movie.
That's right. You called it. This is going to be big.
You were there last night when we were screening it in Los Angeles. And what were some of your observations about the audience reaction?
I was surprised that you had drunk so heavily before you arrived, Patty, because, boy, you passed me in the aisle, and I just couldn't even stand up. Well, it's tough to have a screening with 200 people from the press there because everyone's a critic, and they're kind of like looking at it like this, but they had to laugh in spite of themselves, and that always makes you feel good.
You got, of course, cooperation from the Army and the Department of Defense in making this movie, but were there some things, Bill, that they just wouldn't go along with?
Well, there were some things they didn't know about that we did in the film. No, they were actually very easy to get along with. Well, you know, it wasn't like we were trying to put anything over on anybody or that we didn't understand their sensibility. There was no problem. We were out to make a movie that was entertaining, and as long as it was that, there was no problem. They're really excited about the film. I mean, it's a really funny movie. It makes the Army look like fun, and that's as good as you can do, I think.
The movie Private Benjamin, though, they gave them a fit, and they did not get cooperation. Did you know that?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, well, that Private Benjamin, I hate to compare the movies, you know. This one is much better, of course, but that was a different movie. That was a movie about a girl that went in the Army and fell in love with a French gynecologist. I still don't understand that movie. But this is all about the Army, and it was, you know, there's a respect, you know, they exist, and they serve a function of some sort, and we weren't out to, you know, grind axes. We were trying to find a real balance, you know, something that was very realistic, that never, you know, insults your intelligence about what the Army is and, you know, what it's all about. And yet it's still funny. So that was our work. That was the real job of the movie.
One of the funniest scenes, I think, is that drill scene. I don't know how you describe that. It's kind of jive drill, isn't it?
That's right. Well, it's a version of like a military, a rifle corps thing, but we do it as a sort of a Motown kind of thing, and we rehearsed it like crazy, and we had to do it in front of like 1,200 real Army people. So we rehearsed it like crazy and did it, and it really works. It's a real knockout. It's a lot of fun. And the real Army people were like, oh, well, you know, they were very, very impressed, and they said that they'd let us enlist if we were willing to come along. But,
going to take them up on it?
No, just too hip.
But that scene, were you all actors in that scene?
Well, no, there were only maybe half dozen actors in that scene, and our platoon was a bunch of guys from around Louisville who were on unemployment and or welfare, and the state manpower gave us these characters, and they were all these wild men, you know, wild hair and beards, and they shaved their heads and made them soldiers in the movie, and they went from being unemployed and on welfare to being movie stars. And almost every night they came out here to Hollywood to shoot the last 2 weeks and drove around in an old station wagon, pounding on the side doors and ow, screaming and hollering. And they're all interested in careers in show business now. And, I don't know what the hell's going on back in Kentucky. But it's great, and they're really wonderful in the film. It really was like going into a platoon, because here were 15 guys from all over, you know, all sorts of walks of life. And so we were thrown together with these guys for 12 weeks, and just like basic training. It was really interesting to get to know people that way.
They sound like a bunch of registered wackos.
They were nuts. They did some funny stuff here. Some of them looked so wild and crazy. Two of them were walking down Hollywood Boulevard, this Dewey and this other character, and some Hollywood Boulevard type saw him coming and said, "Here's some easy money," and like so I said, "Hey, my friend, come on over here, I want to talk to you." You know, and the guy pulls a knife and says, "Give me your wallet," and these two guys look like this. One guy just pulled out a gun. One of our platoon guys had a gun on him and pulls a gun on this, and this local couldn't have been more shocked. I mean, thought he saw some easy money coming. I would have mugged these guys if I'd seen them. And then, it's funny if you had the gun pulled on you. You know? You kind of had to have the gun pointing at your face to really appreciate it.
Gun didn't go off, I hope.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Too well trained.
Bill, you are the fifth of 9 children.
That's right.
I think in this day and time, people can't begin to conceive, young people can't begin to conceive what it's like to grow up in a family, 9 children and mother and daddy.
Well, it takes a lot to conceive 9 children, you know, so there's a lot of work involved. It seems like a lot of fun at the time, but then, yeah, well, 9 kids, yeah, it's a real zoo. It was like living in a cell, in a jail, because there are all these weird kids, and they look sort of like you know, so it's kind of weird growing up. Yeah, we didn't have a big house or anything, so it was pretty much like a circus, you know, traveling circus show, and we all had little outfits.
How many, how many boys and how many girls?
6 boys, 3 girls. I got one sister that's a nun. I got another brother that's an actor, writer, Brian Doyle Murray, and the rest of them are all degenerates and deadbeats. And I hope they see this.
You support them all, do you?
Yes, right, yes. Actually, I clean their houses once a week. 1 day a week I go to each of their houses and just straighten up. Straighten up.
What did your father do?
My father ran well, he didn't run it. He was a manager of a lumber company. And he passed away when I was about 17.
And so then did your children mostly go to work from that point on? Or?
We pretty much went to the mattresses at that point, yeah. It was, everybody sort of tried to do something, but I don't know, just some sort of natural glue held everything together. You know, everybody sort of eked it for a few years there. It was interesting.
Were you a funny kid then?
A funny kid? I was kind of strange. Yes, I mean. Yeah, I was a troublemaker is what I was. I was always in trouble, a classic underachiever, troublemaker. I was the black sheep of the family. I was like a drive and a 6-iron. I was the black sheep of the family, and they wanted to send me to military school. That's where I was doomed. I was headed for military school, except military school costs money, so I don't know. I ended up
that blew that, huh?
That blew that, yeah. If there could have been some sort of free, you know, just prison or something like that for junior college kid, junior.
Were you a juvenile delinquent?
No, well, yeah, I was a juvenile delinquent, yeah, sure, but I got it late, you know. I was a juvenile delinquent when I was 21, you know, so there was no breaks, you know. It's tough when you're still a juvenile delinquent and you're actually, you know, liable under the law, you know. Well, wait a second, you know, wait. How, you know.
You got the picture real quick, kind of clean up your act.
I didn't get it real quick. That was the real problem, see, and they got it. They got my picture right away. As a matter of fact, they still got it in the Wilmette Police Station down there.
Were you really booked on some charges?
Oh, minor things.
Like?
Minor things, you know, possession of automatic weapons. No, nothing like that. No, I just had a lot of trouble, and it really was as much. I became. You know, I sort of matured at the point when the whole world seemed to change, you know, so I was the first to do all the horrible things that children nowadays are famous for. That my younger brothers, you know, by the time they came up to it, you know, it was no big deal. But I was beaten soundly for it and was the scoundrel of Wilmette, you know. I was this scandalous creature walking around in weird clothes and in the middle of the night, you know. Why is this boy out in the snow? You know, that's what I wanted to know.
I have to ask you about Saturday Night Live because, of course, we know now that, I struck a nerve.
Sure. It's all right.
Is it all right?
Yeah, it'll be all right. Go ahead.
Okay. Because now it's the demise. They tried to reactivate it. Why didn't it go with the new people?
Well, there's about 20 reasons why it didn't go from the top down. I mean, the network was wrong and everything was wrong. They just did everything they could possibly do wrong.
You mean the network put the wrong people in charge?
Well, not so much that as that they didn't, you know, it had to change and they didn't want it to change. They didn't see that it had to change. They wanted it exactly the same, which was stupid. You can't make it the same when you lose, you know, 7 people like Danny and John and Gilda and Lorraine, Jane. You know, it's got to change. You have to do something different because you're not going to find people like that. They just don't grow on the tree. So they should have changed it. No, they're going to do it again next year, and they've got the real people back. I'm not the same people, but they've got Michael Donahue and his friend of mine, Bob Tischler, and it's going to be real good again. And then people will say, you know, it's better than it used to be. Whereas now they say it's not as good as it used to be. But it's going to be really strikingly different next year. They're going to do everything they should have done this year, because now they see, that, and people really responded angrily. You know, I mean, I take a lot of grief. I hide out whenever I hear those words, Saturday Night Live. I hit the dirt, crawl under a couch.
Do you ever miss it? ever miss working as a company like that?
Well, we had the same sort of thing on Stripes, where we had John Candy and Joe Flaherty and Harold Ramis, who are all on SCTV, and they got a show on NBC called Network 90 that is now the best show on TV. I saw it the other night, and it's incredible. It's really, it's what we would do now if we were still doing it. It's really an amazing show, and doing the movie with all those people was that sort of experience, working with people that are real good, Warren Oates, and everybody gives and takes. I mean, you saw the movie, and everybody is good. I mean, the real strong performances. And that's the kind of thing Saturday Night Live was, where if you fell down somewhere, there were 5 guys that could do it, you know, and pick you up in a scene or anything else.
The network people, because I know some of them quite well, and some of those network vice presidents, you know, they get instant ulcers and have coronary arrest and all that at some of the things you did.
Just a couple of them. They've all got ulcers, but you know, they've all got ulcers. But they chose that life. You know, it's like monks have to shave their heads, and network people have to get ulcers. So yeah, they didn't know what to make of it. It was terrifying. We were sort of in our own little block up there in the NBC in the RCA building, and they really didn't want to know. I mean, they really didn't want to know. The show had these great ratings, and they didn't know why. You know, and they didn't particularly like these characters storming around the halls who didn't wear ties. You know. They didn't know what we were up to, and they didn't want to know. You know, they just didn't. When these problems with, you know, the network with censors or whatever, or just outrage would come up, they'd kind of shake their heads and say, "Well, but the ratings. You know, I mean, you know how TV is. It's all about this. You know, so, you know, money talks and the rest walk. You know."
If you hadn't had good ratings, they wouldn't have let you do half that stuff.
If we hadn't had good ratings, we would have been history. We would have been gone real fast. You would have been there for 6 weeks, and they'd have put in Canadian nature films in their set, you know. But that was one of those things. The time was ripe for that, you know, and people were ready to watch that. And although it offended them, they saw that, you know, 20 million people loved it and watched it every week. So they, you know, their sensibility isn't necessarily the sensibility of people watching TV.
Bill, we could go on, but we can't because the long arm of of Columbia Pictures is over there.
It's really so bad that these local sheriffs have traced you to this.
I'll try to clean up my act by the next time I see you, Bill. Hey, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Good luck to you.
All right. You be careful down there at Fort Worth.
Okay. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank
Well,
you.
if we can just get Cheryl Swivel just come back
Yeah.
a little bit and
Okay.
move it to the little slide. Somebody give her a hand.